I found out my boyfriend of 2 years was going to propose to another woman when I accidentally saw the receipt for a $3,800 engagement ring in his email. The message from the jeweler read, "Can't wait to see her face when you propose this weekend at your parents' cabin. She's been waiting for this." I stood there frozen, staring at Jake's laptop screen, my hands suddenly ice cold. The worst part? Jake had told me he was going on a guy's fishing trip this weekend. I guess technically someone might be catching something, but it definitely wasn't Fessa. I had only opened his laptop to book concert tickets, something he'd asked me to do since he was swamped at work. That's when I saw the email notification pop up from Golden Treasures Jewelry with the subject line, "Your special purchase receipt." My heart actually fluttered at first, thinking maybe this was for me. We'd been together for 2 years, living together for 6 months, and had recently been having those future conversations where he'd say things like, "I can't imagine my life without you." What a joke that turned out to be. With shaking hands, I opened the email thread and scrolled through it. There were details about ring size, not mine. Style preferences, definitely not my taste. Princess cut, really. And an ongoing conversation about the perfect proposal that Jake had apparently been planning for weeks. The jeweler seemed to know all about the cabin weekend with the families and how Jake wanted everything to be perfect for Emily. Emily? Who the hell was Emily? I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I'd never heard Jake mention an Emily. Not once. My brain was racing, trying to make sense of it all. Maybe it was a misunderstanding? Maybe he was helping a friend? Maybe... My desperate rationalizations were cut short when I noticed Jake had left his phone on the counter. I'd never snooped through his phone before. I'd trusted him completely. But now? I punched in his code, my birthday, ironically enough, and went straight to his messages. And there she was, Emily, with a heart emoji next to her name. 2 years of messages. 2 years. Exactly as long as we'd been together. Can't wait to see you tomorrow night. Missing you during this work trip. My parents keep asking when you're going to make an honest woman out of me, lol. The most recent. So excited for our special weekend. Mom and Dad can't wait to see you again. Love you so much. My vision blurred as I scrolled through message after message. Photos of them together, plans they'd made, inside jokes, all carrying on simultaneously with our relationship. There were even messages from this morning. Jake telling her how much he loved her while he was lying next to me in bed. I sat down on our kitchen floor, phone still in hand, trying to breathe. 2 years. We'd met at my college friend's wedding. He'd been so charming, asking for my number, texting me the very next day. We'd been inseparable ever since. Or so I thought. Apparently, he'd been very separable, separating his time between me and this Emily person. I heard the apartment door unlock. Jake was home early. I quickly placed his phone back on the counter and closed his laptop, my heart racing. How was I supposed to look at him now? How was I supposed to act normal when my entire reality had just been shattered? He walked in, smiled at me like nothing was wrong, and asked if I'd managed to get those concert tickets. I nodded, mumbling something about the website being slow. He kissed my forehead and said he was going to shower before dinner. As he walked away, I realized one thing with absolute clarity. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to scream. Instead, I was going to find out exactly what was going on. And then I was going to make sure Jake's perfect proposal weekend was one that nobody in attendance would ever forget. Updated. Hey everyone, I'm overwhelmed by all your supportive comments on this first part. I never expected this post to blow up like this. Several of you have asked if I immediately confronted Jake. Trust me, I wanted to, but sometimes patience leads to better revenge. Have you ever discovered something shocking about your partner and managed to keep your cool instead of confronting them right away? Jake and I met at my friend Melissa's wedding 2 years ago. He caught the garter, I caught the bouquet, and everyone joked about how we were next. He asked for my number that night, and by the following weekend, we were officially dating. I remember thinking how lucky I was to find someone so attentive, so interested in everything about me. He called when he said he would, remembered my favorite foods, and seemed like the perfect package. Looking back, the red flags were there all along, waving frantically while I deliberately looked the other way. First, there was his insistence on keeping our relationship off social media. "I'm just private," he'd explained. "I don't need to broadcast my personal life to feel validated." I bought it, even found it refreshing compared to my ex who posted about our relationship constantly. I now realized Jake wasn't being private. He was being secretive. There's a difference. Then there were the work trips that became increasingly frequent. 3 days in Chicago, a week in Denver, a weekend conference in Seattle. During these trips, he was mysteriously hard to reach. "Bad reception at the hotel," he'd claim. Or, "back-to-back meetings all day, babe." Once I called the hotel he was supposedly staying at in Boston, just to leave a sweet message for him. They had no record of a Jake Mitchell staying there. When I confronted him, he said he'd stayed at a different hotel because his company's reservation got messed up. I believed him. The biggest red flag came 6 months ago when I found a woman's necklace in our bathroom, a delicate gold chain with a small diamond pendant. When I asked Jake about it, he seemed genuinely confused, then snapped his fingers. "Oh, that must be my sister's. She stayed over last month when you were visiting your parents, remember?" It made sense. I'd never met his sister, or any of his family for that matter. Another red flag I'd willfully ignored. 3 months ago, I found an unfamiliar silver bracelet between our couch cushions. Jake claimed it belonged to his cousin who had visited with her kids. "You know how kids are," he'd said with a laugh. "They probably pulled it off her wrist while playing." Again, I believed him. I actually helped him mail it back to this supposed cousin. Despite all this, I thought we were heading somewhere real. This past month, Jake had started dropping hints about our future. He'd ask things like, "Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And how many kids would you want someday?" He'd even pointed out a house listing in a neighborhood we both liked, talking about how it would be perfect for us. All this time, he was planning to propose to Emily. Once Jake was in the shower, I went back to his laptop. If I was going to find the truth, I needed to see everything. I logged into his cloud storage. We'd shared the password when backing up photos from a vacation, and what I found made my stomach turn. There were hundreds of photos of Jake with a pretty brunette, Emily, presumably, photos at family gatherings, holiday celebrations, weekend getaways to places Jake had told me he was going for work. In one photo from just last month, he was kissing her in front of the Eiffel Tower, during what he'd told me was a business conference in Paris. My hands trembling, I searched for her on Instagram. I found her easily. Adam Peterson, and her profile was public. Her most recent post was from yesterday. "So excited for this weekend. Can't wait to get away with Jay and both our families. Blessed Espacher weekend. Je surprise my love." In an earlier photo from 2 weeks ago, I spotted something that made my blood run cold. She was wearing the exact silver bracelet Jake had claimed belonged to his cousin. The caption read, "Love my birthday gift from the best boyfriend ever." Spoiled. As I was scrolling through her profile, I heard a crash. I'd knocked over a glass without realizing it. The bathroom door opened and Jake called out, "Everything okay out there?" I quickly closed all the tabs and answered, "Just dropped a glass. I'm fine." But I wasn't fine. I was far from fine. That night, I lay awake beside Jake, listening to his even breathing as he slept peacefully, the sleep of someone who didn't know their entire charade was about to collapse. I stared at the ceiling, feeling oddly calm as a plan began forming in my mind. I could confront him now. I could wake him up, scream, throw things, demand explanations. That's what he'd expect. The drama, the tears, the desperate pleas for him to choose me. But why give him that satisfaction? Why let him prepare his lies and manipulate the situation? Number Jake thought he was so clever, living this double life, but he'd made one critical mistake. He'd underestimated me. He thought I was safely tucked away in our apartment while he planned his fairy tale proposal to Emily. He had no idea I knew everything, and that gave me power. I turned to look at his sleeping face. This stranger I'd trusted with my heart, my home, my future. In that moment, something broke and reformed inside me. I didn't want revenge. I wanted justice. I wanted truth. I wanted Emily to know who she was really about to marry. I wanted both their families to see Jake for who he truly was. By morning, my decision was made. I wouldn't confront Jake. Instead, I'd be making a surprise appearance at his parents' cabin this weekend. After all, what kind of girlfriend would I be if I missed my boyfriend's proposal? Updated. Reading all your comments has been incredibly validating. Turns out many of you have dealt with similar betrayals. Some of you asked why I wouldn't just call Emily to warn her instead of showing up. The thing is, I needed everyone to see the truth firsthand. No chances for Jake to spin more lies. Also, would you have believed a random woman calling about your boyfriend, or would you dismiss it as jealousy? Stay tuned for what happens next. The next 2 days were a masterclass in acting. I smiled at Jake over breakfast, kissed him goodbye when he left for work, and texted him cute messages throughout the day. All while methodically gathering evidence and planning my next move. I called in sick to work on Thursday and Friday, telling my boss I had a family emergency. Technically not a lie. I was about to create one. I printed screenshots of text conversations between Jake and me, photos of us together in our apartment, copies of our lease with both our signatures, and even receipts from furniture we'd bought together. I collected mail addressed to both of us and packed my overnight bag while Jake was at work. Friday morning arrived. Jake kissed me goodbye. overnight bag slung over his shoulder, so excited for his fishing trip with the guys that he was practically bouncing. "I'll miss you," he said, looking me straight in the eyes. "I'll text you when we get to the cabin. Reception can be spotty there." "Have fun," I replied, smiling sweetly. "Catch a big one for me." As soon as his car pulled away, I sprang into action. I'd found the cabin address last night while going through his emails. His parents' lakeside property in Holden Creek, about 2 hours north. I knew what time he planned to arrive, and thanks to Emily's excited Instagram stories, I knew the proposal was scheduled for sunset on the deck overlooking the lake. Perfect. An audience. I got into my car and entered the address into my GPS. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. I'd never done anything like this before. Never been the type to cause a scene. But then again, I'd never been too timed for my entire relationship either. The drive gave me time to think, to rehearse what I would say, how I would act. I wasn't going to be hysterical. I wouldn't scream or cry. I would be calm, dignified, and armed with irrefutable evidence. I turned up my confidence boost playlist and focused on the road ahead. I arrived at Holden Creek around 3 p.m. and found a small diner where I could regroup. Over a cup of coffee, I checked Emily's Instagram. She'd posted a picture of the cabin with the caption, "The perfect setting for a perfect weekend. Lakeside Nice family." In the background, I could see cars parked along the driveway. Quite a gathering for a supposed guy's fishing trip. At 4 p.m., I drove past the cabin to get a feel for the layout. It was beautiful. A large, 2-story log structure with a massive deck overlooking a serene lake. Several people were milling about outside, setting up what appeared to be a celebration dinner on long tables. I recognized Jake's parents from photos I'd found, as well as an older couple who must have been Emily's parents. I parked down the road out of sight and waited. By 5:30 p.m., the gathering had moved to the deck. Through my binoculars, thank you, Amazon Prime one-day delivery, I could see Jake looking nervous, checking his pocket repeatedly, where I assumed the ring was hiding. Emily looked radiant in a pale blue dress, laughing with her family, completely unaware of what was really happening. My phone buzzed. A text from Jake. "Caught 3 bass so far. Miss you." Attached was a photo of a fish, undoubtedly taken from Google Images. I shook my head, amazed at how effortlessly he lied. As the sun began its descent toward the horizon, I saw Jake's father clink a glass, gathering everyone's attention. This was it. I grabbed my folder of evidence, checked my appearance in the rearview mirror, and began walking toward the cabin. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat, but my resolve never wavered. I approached from the side of the deck, staying hidden behind some tall bushes, close enough to hear but not be seen. Jake's father was giving a speech about love and commitment, about how proud they were of their son. Emily's mother was dabbing at her eyes with a napkin. The scene was picture perfect, exactly what Jake had planned. Then Jake stepped forward, taking Emily's hand and leading her to the edge of the deck where the view of the sunset over the lake was most spectacular. He began his speech about love at first sight, about knowing she was the one from the moment they met. I nearly laughed out loud. He'd used those exact words with me 2 years ago. And then he was reaching into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box, dropping to one knee. Emily gasped, hands flying to her mouth. Everyone on the deck leaned forward in anticipation. "Emily Peterson," Jake said, voice carrying clearly in the evening air. "I've loved you from the moment I met you 2 years ago. You're my best friend, my soulmate, the woman I want to spend the rest of my life with. Will you marry me?" That was my cue. I stepped out from behind the bushes and walked calmly up the deck stairs. For a moment, no one noticed me. All eyes were on Emily as she tearfully nodded, hands still covering her mouth. Jake slipped the ring onto her finger, and everyone burst into applause. "Congratulations," I said, my voice cutting through the celebration like a knife. What a beautiful proposal. All heads turned toward me. Jake's face went from elated to horrified in an instant. He stood up so quickly he nearly knocked Emily over. "What's even more impressive," I continued, maintaining my calm tone, "is how you managed to plan this while living with your other girlfriend of 2 years. I turned to Emily, whose confusion was quickly morphing into something darker. "Hi, Emily. I'm Mia, Jake's other girlfriend. We've been together for exactly 2 years, since Melissa Ward's wedding on June 15th, 2021. We live together at 1542 Maple Avenue, apartment 3B. I have the lease here if anyone's interested." The deck had gone completely silent. Emily was staring at her new ring, then at Jake, then at me, her expression cycling through confusion, disbelief, and dawning horror. "Mia, what the hell are you doing here?" Jake finally managed, his voice strangled. "Good question," I replied, opening my folder. "I'm here because I accidentally saw the receipt for that lovely ring while using your laptop. The laptop that sits on the desk in our shared apartment. I turned to the stunned audience. I've brought some evidence I thought you all might find interesting. I handed Emily the first set of photos. Jake and me in our apartment, on vacations, at my sister's graduation. Her hands trembled as she looked through them. This is crazy, Jake said, trying to laugh it off. She's just some obsessed ex who can't let go. Emily, baby, I barely know her. Really? I withdrew more papers from my folder. Here's our lease agreement with both our signatures. Here's a copy of the birthday card you gave me last month. To the love of my life, you wrote. Here's the key to our apartment. I held it up. Should I keep going? Because I have plenty more. Emily's father stepped forward, his face dark with fury. What the hell is going on, Jake? Jake was backing away, hands raised defensively. I can explain. This isn't what it looks like. It looks like you've been living with me while dating Emily, I said calmly. It looks like you've been lying to both of us for 2 years. It looks like you were planning to marry her without ever breaking up with me. I turned to Emily's shell-shocked parents. Did you know Jake was in Paris with me last month? He told me his trip with Emily was a business conference. Emily had sunk into a chair, staring at the ring on her finger as if it had suddenly transformed into something repulsive. The bracelet, she whispered. You said it was specially made for me. The one he told me belonged to his cousin? I asked gently. I actually helped him mail it to his cousin when we found it in our couch cushions. I guess it came back to you. Jake's mother had tears streaming down her face. His father looked like he might have a stroke. Emily's father took a threatening step toward Jake. You son of a bitch. He growled, hands clenching into fists. You've been lying to my daughter for years? Jake looked around frantically, seeking an ally and finding none. It's not like that. Emily, baby, don't listen to her. She's making this all up. Emily slowly stood up, pulled the ring from her finger and looked at it for a long moment. Then, with a sudden burst of energy, she hurled it as far as she could. We all watched as the tiny diamond sparkled in the fading sunlight before disappearing into the lake with a distant plop. 2 years, she said, her voice shaking. 2 years of my life wasted on a lie. She turned to me, tears streaming down her face. Did you know about me? I shook my head. Not until yesterday. I found out when I saw the ring receipt in his email. I never would have stayed if I'd known. I'm so sorry, Emily. She nodded slowly, then turned back to Jake. I never want to see you again. Don't call me. Don't text me. Don't even think about me. Then she walked straight past him and into the cabin, her mother hurrying after her. Jake tried to follow, but Emily's father blocked his path. You stay the hell away from my daughter, he warned, voice low and dangerous. I'd said what I needed to say, shown what I needed to show. There was nothing left for me here. I closed my folder and turned to leave. Mia, wait, Jake called, desperation in his voice. Let me explain. I paused and looked back at him. There's nothing to explain, Jake. It's all perfectly clear. Then I walked down the deck stairs and back toward my car, head held high. I was almost there when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned, half expecting to see Jake, but it was his mother. I'm so sorry, she said, her eyes red from crying. I had no idea. We had no idea. She hesitated, then added, but I always wondered why he never brought you to meet us. Why he was so secretive about his life in the city. I should have pushed harder, asked more questions. It's not your fault, I told her. Jake is very good at lying. She nodded sadly. Are you going to be okay? I considered the question for a moment. Yes, I said finally. I think I am. And I meant it. As I drove away from the cabin, leaving behind the chaos I'd created, I felt lighter than I had in months. The weight of Jake's lies, all the inconsistencies I'd excused, the red flags I'd ignored, all of it was lifting away with each mile that passed. I'd lost my boyfriend, my home, and what I'd thought was my future. But I'd kept my dignity. And for now, that was enough. 6 months have passed since the cabin showdown, and my life looks completely different now. I moved out of Jake's apartment that same weekend. My sister helped me pack while he was still dealing with the fallout at the cabin. By Sunday evening, it was like I'd never lived there at all. The first few weeks were hard. I oscillated between feeling empowered by my actions and questioning everything about the past 2 years. How had I missed the signs? How had I been so thoroughly deceived? My therapist, yes, I finally started therapy, says it's not about intelligence, but about trust. When we trust someone completely, we interpret their actions through that lens of trust, explaining away inconsistencies rather than seeing them as red flags. Jake tried to contact me, of course. The texts started the day after the cabin. I can explain everything, followed by, I never meant to hurt you. And eventually, I think I need help. I blocked his number after that. He showed up at my sister's place once, flowers in hand, begging for a chance to talk. I closed the door in his face. Some betrayals are too deep for explanations. A month after everything happened, I received a message request on Instagram from Emily. I hesitated before accepting it, unsure if I was ready to connect with the other woman in this bizarre triangle. Her message was surprisingly warm. I've been wanting to reach out but wasn't sure what to say. First, thank you for what you did. It was humiliating in the moment, but you saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life. Second, I want you to know that I truly had no idea about you. Jake told me he lived with a male roommate named Mike. I never questioned it because I trusted him completely. We're both victims in this. I hope you're healing and moving forward. We both deserve so much better than Jake Mitchell. We've since met for coffee a few times. There's something uniquely bonding about having been deceived by the same person in the same way. Emily is actually pretty great. Smart, funny, kind. All the things Jake clearly didn't deserve in either of us. She's dating someone new now, someone who introduced her to his entire family on the third date. No red flags yet, she told me with a laugh during our last meetup. As for Jake, karma works in mysterious ways. He lost his job after calling in sick for 2 weeks following the cabin incident. Apparently, his boss saw Emily's cousin's social media post about the two-timing proposal disaster that had gone locally viral. He's moved back in with his parents, and according to his mother, who still checks in on me occasionally, is seeing a therapist to work on his issues with honesty and commitment. Too little, too late, if you ask me. I'm renting my own place now, a cozy one-bedroom with a balcony overlooking the park. I've redecorated in a style that's completely my own, not compromising with anyone else's tastes. It's amazing how freeing it is to make decisions solely for yourself after years of consideration for someone else. The best development? I've started dating again, cautiously. His name is Daniel, and we met, ironically enough, through Emily's cousin at a dinner party. He knows the whole Jake saga. Everyone at that dinner did, and has been patient with my trust issues. He keeps his promises, answers his phone when I call, and his social media proudly displays photos of us together. Basic decency shouldn't feel like winning the lottery, but after Jake, it kind of does. Looking back, I don't regret my dramatic entrance at the cabin. It was cathartic, necessary, and probably saved both Emily and me from more years of deception. The experience taught me to trust my instincts, to question inconsistencies rather than explain them away, and to require transparency in my relationships. Most importantly, I learned that sometimes the most devastating betrayals lead to the most liberating new beginnings. Jake tried to build a life on lies, and it crumbled spectacularly. I'm building mine on truth, and despite the painful foundation, it's turning out to be much stronger than anything I had before. So if you're reading this and something feels off in your relationship, that nagging doubt you keep pushing away, pay attention to it. It might be nothing, or it might be everything. Either way, you deserve to know the truth.